Welcome back to Hockey Unplugged. I'm Carson and I'm here with Jack Shea. Today we're going to be talking about some kind of sleeper players we chose in our fantasy hockey league that we just drafted for, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks ago. What was that?
Yeah, probably about 2 weeks ago, I'd say we did the draft a couple of weekends ago.
Yeah. All right, so let Jack kind of start off here.
Yeah, so Carson and I, this is the first time we've done fantasy hockey this year, and by no means are we experts, so don't take this information with a grain of salt, but we just are going to look at some of the players. I think the players that you picked, you chose them right in your leagues.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so same. I have the players I picked. I also, because we did 2 drafts, or we're in 2 leagues each. So these are just some players that we picked that we're excited to see play, and we just think will be maybe some sleeper picks. So the first player that I picked is Johnny Gaudreau. Now this could be controversial because I know he's not necessarily an underrated player. At least I wouldn't really say he's that underrated. But when it comes to fantasy hockey, I didn't pick him up till the 6th round. And if you're thinking back, obviously in 2021-22, he had 115 points. And then obviously we know the story, he leaves. And then he didn't have the greatest season with Columbus. He still had 74 points, I think, in 78 games. Yeah, so for the caliber of player he is, getting him in the 6th round, I think that's just kind of a low risk, high reward play, picking up a guy like Gaudreau after maybe you have already most of your stars picked in the first 5 rounds. You can't really go wrong with a pick like that.
Yeah, so Gaudreau was obviously better with the Flames, 115-point season in 2021-22. But even after the switch to Columbus, he still had 74 points, and that's not elite level player in the NHL, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
And definitely good for fantasy, especially picking him up in the 6th round. So why would you kind of say he's a sleeper player?
Well, I think just because the potential he has, he's when he got his 115 points, he's playing with Lindholm and Tkachuk. Obviously, he doesn't have line mates of that caliber, but the Columbus Blue Jackets have improved this offseason. We see they're maybe wanting to be a little bit more competitive with some of their signings. I think if Line A can be healthy, Gaudreau is obviously really good with snipers like that, just with his playmaking ability. And it's looking like he's going to get a actual center to play with now with Fantilli. I don't know if Fantilli's going to play center, because I actually heard rumors Line A might play center, but I still think Fantilli is going to be playing with Gaudreau. And I just think Gaudreau, Fantilli, Line A, I don't obviously Fantilli's not in his prime yet, but he's still, I think, going to have a really solid rookie year up there in the Calder race. So he's going to have really solid line mates. And if you look at Gaudreau's track record, he often is quite up and down with his points. He'll have one really good year, then one really not bad year, but just from Gaudreau standards, maybe a little bit lower than he would like. So if he stays sort of on that, I don't know what you want to call it, track record, he'll probably have another big season. I do think he will. That might be a bit biased because I am quite a Gaudreau fan, but I could see him easily hitting 85 points this year.
Yeah, that's not out of the question for sure. Especially with that line, right? If you're right about Fantilli getting on the same line with him, which obviously he probably will.
Yeah.
Blue Jackets don't really have a team where they can put someone else up there.
No. Okay, one last thing about Gaudreau is, I don't know if you heard or you probably maybe saw it happen maybe a month and a half ago, with the Blue Jackets hired Mike Babcock. I think it was announced. I'm not actually 100% sure, but I do know he's going to be their coach next year. And if you know Gaudreau well enough, he does really well under demanding coaches like that. We saw him with Sutter, obviously. Said this already, 115-point season. I'm not saying he's going to gel well with Babcock, but I do know Babcock is quite the demanding coach, and Gaudreau seems to do really well under that sort of environment. So that's kind of another reason as to why I think he might bounce back and have a really good year in fantasy and be a steal in the 6th round.
I definitely noticed that kind of on the Flames that season. He seemed to be one of the players that was kind of getting along with Sutter the most and producing under Sutter. So it'll definitely be interesting to see a more demanding coach kind of coming into Columbus and hopefully getting as much out of Gaudreau as possible.
For sure.
All right, so my first kind of sleeper pick, I chose Brock Besser. This might kind of seem a little biased just because I'm a Canucks fan, and it kind of is, to be honest, but I just know him well, so I decided to
Yeah,
talk about him. He's never had like a ton of points, but I'll blame that on injuries. He's had a tough time with injuries, and I think if he can kind of stay healthy this season, hopefully we'll see him produce a little bit more. And I took a little bit of a risk, but I also picked him up late, so it wasn't necessarily a risk.
yeah. Do you know what round you picked him up in?
Um, I think he was around the 6th or 7th round as well,
Yeah, so that's
something like
kind of
that.
like again, kind of like low risk, high reward if he does have like a pretty good season.
Yeah,
I think kind of going back though to what you're saying, just with like injuries, and I feel like Besser's always had something going on with him, like even with his like dad, right? Like didn't
yeah,
his dad die or something?
yeah. That was
Yeah.
his dad, like passed away, and he had a tough time with that, and then also battling with all those injuries. He's had a
So
little bit of a tough career, but
yeah, so that's just kind of like if he can just kind of get like in a good environment and just start off really strong, I think he could for sure honestly like pop for like 65 plus points. Because this year, I mean, I don't know if you want to call it a down year because he's always been around like a 50-point guy, but he had 55 points in 74 games. I think you would want more goals out of him considering his rookie year he had 29 and he only had what was it, 18 this year.
yeah,
So I mean, if he can bounce back too, that's going to be really good for your fantasy team because goals are worth 2 points. So good sniper. Hopefully, I be as healthy and see the best of Esther this year.
yeah. I think he definitely can produce like he did, depending on those injuries and stuff, right? Like his 29 goal season, that was 2017, 2018, before all the injuries and all the like his dad passing away and stuff like that. So I think if he can kind of push through that and just focus on hockey, then he can definitely produce like he did in that 2017-18 season. And I'd like to see that, obviously,
Yeah,
because have him on my team.
yeah. I do hope the best for Besser too because he was one of my favorite players like early in his career when he was like quite young. So it'd be cool to see like Besser at his best.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so the second player that I picked for my sleeper pick, I got him in my other league, Matt Duchene. So Matt Duchene just signed a 3-by-1 with the Stars this offseason, obviously, after being bought out by Nashville. And you may be asking, like, why Duchene? I think it's just a lot with the potential of Duchene. Because this past season, I don't actually know the points off the top of my head, but I do know, like, the 2021-22 season, similar to Gaudreau, he had a career year. I believe he had 40-something goals and, like, 86 points. So the offense is there, and he's going to be going to a much better Dallas team. He's going to get power play time. I assume maybe not power play one, but he will be getting power play time. I don't really know what their power play looks like up there. But then he's obviously going to get top 6 minutes too. I don't think first line because obviously the first line there in Dallas is like Robertson, Hintz, and then Pavelski, and you're not going to break that lineup. It's like one of the best in hockey. So he's going to be playing with like really good players, like maybe probably Wyatt Johnson or something. I'm not too sure like what the lines will look like there, but he's just going to be on a much better team and with much better line mates.
Yeah, definitely. I was kind of thinking that was what I was going to say as well. He's the Predators. He did have his career season there. And I could definitely see him producing maybe even like that again, like around the 80-point mark on the Stars with their current team, being one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah.
What do you think about his age? Like, you think he's still going to be, or sorry, do you think that's going to kind of become a problem for him? He's getting a little older now. I think he's 32, so still not like that old, but
Yeah, I think that for this upcoming season, he'll be fine. Like, obviously, that's kind of the only season I really care about right now.
yeah,
And I think he's just going to have a ton of motivation too, because he's only on a 1-year deal. So he's playing a contract year, right? So he's going to have a ton of extra motivation. We know how players play on their contract years. And I know he is older, but I still think just playing on like this star-studded Dallas Stars roster, he's going to have no issue. I don't think he's going to be like 80 points again, but I could see like a 30 and 30, 60 point season, something like that. That'd be pretty solid because I got him in like the ninth round or something. So
Mhm.
again, kind of like Goudreau and the Bester pick, just a low risk, high reward pick.
Okay, so the second player I chose for this kind of sleeper player is Owen Tippett on the Flyers. I picked him up pretty late. I don't remember exactly what round it was, but it was kind of one of my last picks when there was no one really left to choose from. His last season, he had 49 points, which is not really terrible. It's going to be nice to have if he produces like he did last season. 27 goals, so he actually outscored his assists, which is also good for fantasy. Like Shaq said earlier, a goal is worth 2 points. So
Yeah, so Owen Tippett, I think there's like just a ton of potential there. Like he's only like 24, I think. So he's still like extremely young, and he's playing on like a young, or not, I don't know if Philly's really considered young, but they're like rebuilding, and he's on their top line. I think he's centering their top line. So he's getting ton of minutes. He's gonna be on what PP1 too. So he's gonna be on the ice a ton next year. And I think he honestly might pop like even more next year for like 60 something point. A really good pick late in the draft. And something that's interesting too is I was just looking at like ESPN, like because that's where we did our drafts, ESPN's like rankings, and they had him, I think, what was it? They had him ranked 80 in their top 300 players, 82.
oh,
So they're
really?
pretty high on him too. Like, so it's interesting. Maybe he will have some monster year and he's gonna lead your team in points.
That would be pretty surprising. I have to reconsider where I'm placing him if that was the case. But yeah, honestly, I could see that happening, right? He's 24. If he's placed that high, just from other people's point of view, like I don't really know that much about him, I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
I looked into him a little bit before this episode, but he's not a player I've seen a lot. I don't see Philly play,
Mm-hmm.
just because of where we are. Their games aren't on TV or anything like that. So, but yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see kind of how he does for my team. And like you said, if he ends up being that like top point scorer, that could be that could be
That,
something that's like, I don't know, that would be quite a surprise for sure.
that'd be pretty funny. But yeah, I think like again, like I said, the potential's there. Like he's a former 10th overall pick. So it's not like this is like some 6th rounder, dude. Like he had a 50-point season last year, and he's again we're kind of reiterating what we said, but he's so young. So I think he's just gonna go up from here. All right, guys. So that's it from us. It's just a little bit of a shorter episode here. Obviously, we're kind of in the leading up to the NHL season. Preseason's coming up here pretty soon, so we should have some other like fun episodes coming up. But this was one we just came up with quickly because we know fantasy drafts are coming up. So take these pointers with a grain of salt if you want to use these in your drafts, because I know some drafts are coming up. But yeah, thanks guys for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check out Beacn. We'll link them down below again, and share this with family and friends. Interact with all of our Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube shorts, because it helps us grow the podcast quite a bit. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Take care.